All right, so you're ready to put together a front stage in your vehicle. You want the sound to be amazing. You want the sound filled up high. You want the vocals to pop. You want that saxophone to slam you in the face. You want the guitars to blow your mind. Basically, you're just trying to build a good system and you want to know what equipment to put where. Now, in this particular video, we're not going to be talking about specific brands per se. We're going to be discussing basic types of drivers because that's more important in your quest to get the soundstage as high and as potent as you can. And different types of drivers, we're going to show you what the specs you need to look for to figure out what type of driver to do what thing. Let's switch over to the camera. We're going to go over here. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so we're over here on Slapz. Let me see if I can get this to whole page. There we go. We're over here on Slapz audio webpage because I want to use this to show you guys some of the specs that are listed down below. This is a subwoofer that we're looking at right now. But some of the things we're looking for are going to be the same no matter what driver it is. And when you're designing that stage, the first thing you want to know is what range will these speakers play. And I'm not sure if it's going to show it on the subwoofer. It does show the BL. It shows the QTS. It shows the FS. None of these are the right thing. So let's see if we can switch without having to go. Okay. So we're going to go with some big speakers. These are the ones that I currently have in, well, no, they're not either. Let me back up. These are the ones I currently have in my Tahoe right now on my doors. This is a set of 10-inch mid-bass drivers. And we're going to discuss the difference between mid-bass and mid-range and full range. So first of all, let's go down here and have a little peek at the frequency range. So the frequency range on these drivers is 75 hertz to 4.5 kilohertz. This is an excellent range if you're trying to include the bulk of the music coming out of these drivers. And you notice that these go pretty low at 75 hertz to 4.5 kilohertz. Now, if we go back and pull up a different driver, let's see if we can go down to the 6.5s and look at the same spectrum down here. Frequency range is 110 to a little higher, 5,300 kilohertz, so 5.3 kilohertz. That is a little bit higher range. You notice it doesn't go down as far. And one of the reasons it doesn't is because of the cone area. A larger driver has a lower overall range ability. This is a 5 1/4, and we're looking at 148 to 6,000. So the frequency range is going up on the top end, but it's also going up on the bottom end. That range, though, just continues to shift towards the highs as the cone gets smaller. And this is the first thing that you're going to know right off the bat. Let's go to the Street Pro 12. These things are big. So let's look at these guys. And their range is 45 hertz to 3.4 kilohertz. That is a crazy range. This right here would basically play the whole bottom end. I mean, even most of the bass can come from this thing. And when you're looking at it for $149, that's a pretty singing good deal too. 600 watt RMS. Holy crap, man. The idea, though, is to be able to match this driver up with a tweeter that will work well for it. So if we look at the frequency range here at 45 hertz to 3.4 kilohertz, we know we need a tweeter to come in at this frequency or below to match up with this driver so you can get a full range of sound. So if we go back and we look at the Street Pro titanium, this is what I have in my doors right here. This frequency range will play down to 2.5 kilohertz. It'll play down low enough that this tweeter right here, alongside that big old 12 right there, will actually play the full range of sound. Now, here's the kicker. How are you going to get this thing up high enough in your sound field to get the sound up high? See, that's always a problem, right? If you're looking at a sound stage um, in front of you, ideally, in the best potential case scenario, you're going to have the speakers that are playing the bulk of the information, or that, that vocal range, the human voice, from like, say, 200 hertz up to like, uh, say, 10K. Okay. That general range. You want those speakers to be up high, up there to where you're, closer to where you want the band to appear to be, because that's where the bulk of that information is coming from. Having a set of 12s, it's kind of hard to get those suckers, up here, right? They're big. They're not. It's hard to get them in the vehicle in the front anyway. But getting them up high, that's tricky business. So how can you utilize something like these guys and still be able to get that sound stage up high? Um, that would be using something like this down low. Okay, you could use smaller drivers. You could use eights. You could use whatever. But utilizing something that has that low range down low, and then going to like a 5 1/4 up high. Now you could take this type of speaker and mount it up higher in the door, or even in the A pillars if you build pods, or in the dash, and get those that big old huge range of the human vocals and saxophones and snare drums and high tom toms and high bass notes and guitars, all that stuff, cymbals crashing, and all those things that are the bulk of the music, to get those up in the higher in the stage so that you can hear that band out in front of you and not down below you. Now, bass notes, lowered frequency notes, are not nearly as directional as those mid frequencies. So, having the larger driver like the 12s down below will actually reinforce all that bottom end and give you those big, huge, lively drums, and help to work with the 5 1/4s up high, so that you feel that deep rumbling bass is coming from in front of you. Still, you're going to get from the smaller drivers, you're going to get so much information about that kick drum, right? You're going to get the little hits from it, the little clinks, the the different parts, the different nuances from it are going to come from up here. So when the actual thud is going to come from down below, your brain is still going to process it as all of that sound coming from the front of you. So you want to trick your brain into thinking that all the bass is in the front also. Unfortunately, having subwoofers behind you doesn't do that very well. And that's the area where you have the space, but it's hard to get that sound to come from the front. There's ways to tune it and such to get that to happen, but it's better if you can put the bass in the front to start with. The more you can physically do to correct your soundstage, the less tweaking and fiddling you have to do to fix the things that you can't physically do. So you want to put as much sound in front and put it as far to the front, as close to the top, and as far off to each side as you can, to create the best possible starting point for tuning with a DSP. So, understanding how to assemble a component set of speakers, that's what we're doing right now. I'm showing you some pretty extreme examples with a 12-inch, mid-bass driver, but I'm running a set of 10-inch mid-bass drivers in the doors of my Tahoe right now. It's not an undoable thing. It does require some serious fabrication to make it happen, but it is what it is. And if you're looking to run something kind of bonkers in your doors and you don't have the fab skills or the time or the energy or the money to invest in something like what I did with my doors, head over to customspeakerpods.com and look at your vehicle and look for what they have available. They may have some 8s or even some 10s or double 6.5s and things of that nature that you can put those pods in your doors and on your A-pillars to move these drivers around and get them in the position that you want them in. And the prices are not cheap, but compared to custom fabricating, it's huge savings, and they're a whole lot easier to install. So look at that. I do have a coupon code over there, so if you use discount code CAE, you save 10% off anything on their site. It's really cool to check out. But let's look at this other stuff because I want to talk about some more stuff over here. Again, this is a 5 1/4 1.5 inch voice coil, little bitty guy. This driver would be good for 148 hertz. You're not going to play a sub up this high. A subwoofer's not going to play up that high, so that's not ideal for just a subwoofer matchup. However, this is more of a go along with another driver kind of a deal. So if you got these guys up high, and then you say, let's keep it in a practical range. Let's say you have the Street Pro 8s in your doors. You went over to customstickerpods.com and you got these 8s, and you got these guys in the doors. And what do they play? Yeah, see, they play 77 hertz to 5.1 kilohertz. So this will easily play down to your subwoofers range, and then up to your tweeters range. No problem. This driver right here would do it all. So you put these guys in the doors, and then you run the tweeter up there. Now let's say you still want that soundstage to come up high. You want a speaker up high, right? And by the way, I want to check something real quick. So I was looking at the that Pro Audio tweeter. Let's look at this Silk Dome tweeter. Is it Silk Dome? No, it's titanium. Okay. Let's look at it. Its frequency range is, whoa, that's low. Oh, yeah. 1,000 hertz. That's 1 kilohertz to 20 kilohertz. That's a huge range. That is insanely good. So, yeah, that would play down wherever, just on down. But so you got this guy, it'll play down to 1,000 hertz. We probably wouldn't set it that high. I usually don't play tweeters below about 2K under most circumstances, but you can compile one of these two with something like the 5.5 or 5 1/4 to build that soundstage up high to get the soundstage up to the top. And then you add an 8 down below. So if you're doing all this, where do you set your crossover points? Because now you've got this driver that plays, up in 5 or 6 kilohertz, and you got this driver that plays, 5 or 6 kilohertz. They're basically the same driver, right? They have a very similar range. This one will play much lower, but beyond that, they're very similar in their range. So how do you cross that over? Well, I'm going to tell you, it's going to depend on your vehicle. It's not as simple as me giving you an easy rule to follow, but I will tell you what I tend to do. I cross over the lowest driver, the biggest driver, and the tweeter to where they have a nice blend. I usually go, since the woofer can play, it's going to run out of gas, right? I usually take it and cross it over at like a 6 dB roll off, so that it's because it's going to naturally roll off anyway. And I let it roll off, and I cross the tweeter at a 24 dB roll off to keep it from getting down into the dangerous area. So that crossover point is going to look kind of wonky like this. This would be the tweeter. Instead of crossing over with the 6, it's going to be dropping hard, and the woofer's going to carry forward. Then I'll come in with the mid range that's going to be up high and in the right position, and I'll set it to something like 400 hertz to like 10K, and I'll turn it down a lot. So once I get the bottom, the big one and the tweeter made up, and I get the RTA out, and I get those signals to where they're overlapping, and it's mostly a smoothish graph. There'll be a bit of a dip in there, and that's where I'm going to fill that dip in with that mid. So I want to tune it to where its frequency cutoffs or both ends are right about where the bigger, larger driver and the tweeter are not really filling that gap in. And I'll tune it to where I'll cross it over and EQ it to where it fills in that spot a little bit more. And I'll put it up high and I'll give it just the tiniest bit of power. You don't want to put any major volume on it. You just want to create a little tiny something to give you a little presence up high to help pull your visual soundstage up. And it's a very subtle thing. You would if you're listening outside the vehicle, you won't even notice when you turn it on or off. You won't hear the difference. You have to be sitting in the vehicle to catch it, and it's just going to subtly pull a soundstage that's in here up and give you more of a direct feeling out in front of you. So that's how I set up a complex multi-speaker array. Now, the proper way to do it, and proper, I say that loosely, the proper way to do it is to have the door driver, the big one, okay, whatever it is, having it crossing over at like with the subwoofer, right? So if the sub's playing up to say 60 hertz, the door comes in at 60 hertz and plays up to like probably 600 hertz, something like that. And then you would bring in your up level mid at 600 hertz and roll it off with the tweeter. And so that each of those plays a section of music, a section of information. I don't like the way that sounds. It works. I just don't like the way that sounds. I prefer myself to have more information in these speakers down lower. I think it blends better, and it's just my personal preference. That's how I do it. So if you want to know how I do it and how you're supposed to do it, you're supposed to do it as long as your crossover points are within the range of the driver's designed to operate, and in a power ratio, how much power you're putting on it is also within that range. Then you would cross over the say the 3.5 or whatever they are up high. You cross those over somewhere around 400 hertz. You would go 400 to say 5K or 10K, and then you bring the tweeters in wherever you drop those off. And down below, you'd put whatever you're bringing in down below to play up to that 400 hertz. So your doors would play from 80 to 400, for example, and then your subwoofer would play from 0 to 80. And if you cross over everything over at a 24 dB slope with a Linkwitz-Riley crossover slope, they should. Okay, so as a one rolls off and another one rolls on, there's a dip because this one's dying, this one's coming in. But at a 24 dB roll off, where these two are together, even though they're both dying, where they exist together in that little space will actually flip. And you'll end up with mostly a flat coverage in that area. The problem I have with that is if you're listening to sound, say someone is playing a saxophone, right? When they're playing the lower notes, boom, 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 your brain is going to go, that sound's coming from down here. And when they get up into those highs, the sound is going to move up in the sound field. It doesn't sound like the instrument is playing everything in its location. It sounds like it's playing notes depending on what speaker it's coming out of. I do not like that sound. So the way I cross it over, like I said before, I blend it, I let that tint come up, and then I lock that tweeter down, then I fill the mid in. I want all of the notes from the saxophone, whenever you tweedledoo, I want them all to be sounding like they're coming from the same location in the soundstage out in front of me. And that is a struggle for everybody that's doing DSP work in an SQ vehicle. It's getting that to happen. I've found that my technique gets me pretty damn close. So to summarize, what you're looking for is drivers that will cover the range of frequencies that you need covered. And I personally always go for the largest driver I can that I can possibly fit in the locations that I have to work with, because a larger cone is going to give you more sound with less power. It's also going to give a more natural sound to vocals and other things that kind of play lower registers. A small cone can only do so much with lower registers. And there are nuances to a voice, for example. And my voice, there's a mid-range sound that's mainly from my vocal cords, but you've also got a lower, deeper resonance that's coming from my chest. And those two need to be together to make it sound like I am natural, make it sound like I'm right here in front of you. If you're hearing my chest register coming from the subwoofers, then it's going to make my voice sound all ghosty and all over the place. The entire range of sound needs to be in the area that you want to hear it from to start with. That makes overall DSPing in the end and getting that sound stage where you want it so much easier if it's already basically where you want it. Anyway, that's how I pick out speakers. I look at what they can do and I figure out where I can put them, what size I need, what the speaker is designed to do. All these speakers I was showing you are all mid-bass drivers. They all play pretty damn low. They play great vocals and they also play down low. They're a real good solution if you're going to run a driver and a tweeter together, because every one of them, including the 12, can play by itself with just a tweeter and sound phenomenal. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. If you are interested in picking up Slapz audio gear, head over there, use my discount code CAE for 10% off there. You can use my discount code CAE at the customspeakerpods.com. You can use CAE10 over at Trunk Thunder Lithium to get a 10% off there. I have discount code CAE at B2 Audio, discount code CAE at Big Jeff Audio. Anything you want, I've got your code. Hopefully this helped you guys. Hopefully it was informative and you learned something. I'll do what I can. Peace.